All right, so we are recording. Ron Farnham, thank you so much for being on Eye of the Heart. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to have you on the show. And, you really sparked my interest last week. We were talking about a lot of different things, but one of the things that you know a lot about is, government, how the government looks at people. And you said some interesting things to me. One of them was living soul, because I always thought I knew what I was as a living soul. And after talking with you, I think I was misunderstood really with what that term means to the government anyways. So anyhow, I really appreciate you being on the show. If you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of history about yourself. I hear you have some experience in government in Hollywood. If you wouldn't mind just sort of giving us a little bio of your history.
Yeah, definitely. And just to cap off what you just said, the term living soul is a standing of beingness that puts you above all other kinds of entities, because it's literally out of the commercial world. So you don't fall under, a living soul falls under no jurisdiction, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But I was born in New York, and then I moved to Florida when I was a kid, and I grew up in Florida, and I went to high school in Florida. I played college baseball in Florida and in Alabama. And then I went into the military in 93. In 1993, I became a Korean linguist and a signals intelligence analyst in the Army after I had gotten my associate's degree before I went into the military. And then I did 8 years active duty in the signals intelligence world, the counterterrorism world, languages, over, Korean language I studied for a couple of years. Then I became a contractor, and I worked at Headquarters Special Operations Command. I worked at Headquarters Southern Command, and I dealt with a lot of all classified material and gathering intelligence across Earth, especially working at Special Operations Command, which is when I was working at Southern Command, I had to turn over all of my intelligence Mexico reporting to Northern Command when Northern Command became a command. And that was around 2002. And Northern Command's area of responsibility is Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And that's when I really realized that the US of A Corporation had invaded the United States via Northern Command, where they're spying on everybody right now.
Right now, so that's that you mentioned that. I heard some other people talking. There's some huge, massive computer systems, like 1 million square foot, like database centers in Utah, Texas, and really all over the world, but Utah being one of the biggest centers at like 1 million square feet or something like that. That's just basically taking in every millisecond of everyone's life, as long as they've got some kind of phone or some kind of electronic device, as far as I know. Maybe they're tracking up by other means. I really don't know.
Well, there's what's called an intranet. We are on the internet. The military, the worldwide departments of defense and the worldwide military industrial complex operate on an intranet, and it has top secret, not for official release, for official use only, classified, unclassified, and then the regular internet. So there's like certain levels, and the regular internet feeds into this intranet, and this intranet handles all levels of intelligence, and it's shared among all of the commands. So I worked at Headquarters Special Operations Command, where we had a gigantic, there are several large server rooms that house all of the data that's collected. They have them at the Pentagon, they have them at Headquarters Special Operations Command, Headquarters Central Command, Headquarters Southern Command, and these large databases ingest all of the intelligence reporting from across Earth and all of the different areas of responsibility. So you got the US of A Corporation in Washington, the District of Columbia, which is a corporation, and one of its departments, the Department of Defense, has created a bunch of sub-commands that are gathering intelligence across the entire Earth and then storing that in different server rooms across and all the major commands, sharing it with the Pentagon, MI6, and other major intelligence agencies that are all working together to share data that they're collecting on every living soul on Earth that they've converted to citizens, and they believe that if you let yourself be called a citizen, I'm not saying you, but the general public lets themselves be called a citizen, then they are putting themselves into the jurisdiction of the state that is actively collecting information on that entity, that corporate fiction. Citizen is just a corporation.
Right.
Living soul is not. That's your identity as a living being.
So now you talked a little bit about, and also, you have the book, The Solution, which I'm really excited to read about this. And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about how people can regain their sovereignty, if you will, or regain that living soul status that
Sure.
we really inherently are born with. I wanted to ask you this question because I was thinking about it earlier, and I've heard some other people talk about this topic where, there's the law of the sea, there's the law of the land and the living soil, and there's the law of the air. And that's at some point in time, the American citizen actually was converted over from being a part of the law of the land and living soil they got converted over to the maritime law. Do you know anything about that, or does that ring any bells with you? Like we're actually operating more under maritime law than we are land and living soil law?
Well, there's really just two types of law. And when you're in a so-called courtroom and they have a flag with a gold fringe on it in the courtroom, you're operating under maritime jurisdiction. So maritime is not a law. Maritime is a jurisdiction. And that jurisdiction is the military maritime jurisdiction under military law. But there are only a couple of real courts in the United States, in the world. All of the courts in the United States are basically contract courts and administrative centers, where in the administrative centers, statutes and codes are put on as a stage play by these people who are acting as judges and bailiffs and lifted themselves up off the level playing field, and they're just siphoning Federal Reserve notes or credit out of your bank account. That's just a fraud. And when you see a gold fringe in there, which really is rare now because most of these places are no longer operating under military, they're just private companies working to just let the fraternal order of the police write contracts out on the street. It's a big scam everywhere with that. So especially with the driver.
Are they doing that illegally, or is that are they within their legal boundaries of doing these types of things?
Well, that's where, when you mentioned at the top of the show about conditional acceptance, whatever you're accepting or conditionally accepting offers about, you're doing it. You're accepting their offer and you're in their jurisdiction. For instance, all of these movies and TV shows have painted a picture over the years of people needing a driver's license, they call it, and being able to only drive with the driver's license, and then pulling over when the lights go on, and then answering the cops' questions when they start asking you questions.
Right.
Well, you have the right to, a question is an offer. A smile is an offer. The lights, when the police officer throws them on in the air behind you, that's an offer. That's an offer of jurisdiction or contract acceptance. So when they pull you over, they start speaking legal English to you, and they use words like understand, driving, and they ask you questions because they want you to go into a verbal contract with them. When honestly, you don't have to answer any questions without them having to pay a fee. You don't have to do anything that you don't conditionally accept. And you can use a fee schedule to conditionally accept. So if a cop pulls you over and starts asking you questions, and you're not a driver, let's say, Logan, you want to just go to the store and pick up some groceries and bring them home. No one's paying you to drive. You're just traveling from your home to the store. And the cop thinks that if you're in a 35-mile-an-hour zone, and those speed limits and that speed, those statutes and codes are for people who are being paid to drive or operate a vehicle for hire on the road conducting commerce. And those are the only ones that need a driver license or an operator's license. So, but everybody's been indoctrinated to believe that you need a driver's license to go to the store, and you don't, and that you have to answer questions for free, and that you have to pull over, and you even have to have your identification with you. Remember, it's your name. So when we get into my book, The Solution, part of the first step is securing your name as your property, and then realizing certain things about what you are. If you call yourself a citizen, then you fall under public jurisdiction. But if you realize and understand, using the legal word understand, stand under and take responsibility for, instead of slang or formal English, legal English, stand under, take responsibility for, understand that you're this entire energy body made up of a gigantic electromagnetic aura that's of different colors that correspond, I believe, to the aurora borealis at the center, at the North Pole, and that we are really just these light energy beings in some type of a toroid field, and that we don't have jurisdiction other than honoring our parents, to accept or conditionally accept their offers, or honoring our creator. And if you can't think of any other creator, if you don't know about what God might be or what it is or whatever, then your really only creators are your parents. They made you, and nature that you're living in, and natural law is the highest form of law. So if you look at it from a biblical standpoint, and I'm not very religious, but you have the Old Testament, which operated under common law, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and it's still that way over in some countries in the Middle East. Then we switched over to a more lenient or merciful law called statutes and codes under the New Testament. And we live in a world right now where you can be punished by accepting penalties and fines and jail time. It's actually a benefit and privilege of being under certain, under that kind of jurisdiction. So that's for commercial damage to people. But if you're looking at it from a common law, eye for an eye, if you do damage to somebody and you hurt them, then you have to be responsible for that. And I think that should fall more under common law. But these days you can even sue people for personal injury. So there's also that system in place too. But regular conditional acceptance is your power as a living soul to navigate the jurisdiction of the state or country in which you live. Like I'm in Florida. Florida is really a country. Washington, there is no really country called the United States of America. That's a corporation in Washington, D.C. Your country that you live in is whatever that state is. It's got its own boundaries. My country is Florida, and it's got its own boundaries. It's got its own laws, statutes, codes, jurisdiction, so that's my country. And my leader politically would be my governor, of whatever state. Like I'm in Florida right now, DeSantis is the governor. He's my political leader, not the CEO or president of the US of A Corporation in Washington, D.C. That's why I left working for the Department of Defense, because I realized I was actually a terrorist to the world just by working in the Department of Defense for the US of A Corporation. And so I got out and started writing books and making movies about how to free ourselves from that tyranny and jurisdiction and slavery.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And that's some degree or another. I think when people are, a lot of people are starting to wake up right now. And the information that you have is so fascinating to me, because I always looked at myself as more, of a spiritual, metaphysical, esoteric kind of person. And I've always explored these outer boundaries of the furthest I could take myself, and, an exploration on the inward sense, inward and outward kind of being at the same time, and never really paid attention to the world outside of me, because I never really had a reason to, I guess, like I didn't see the corruption so much. I knew it and felt that it existed. I could see the establishment was completely a farce. And I guess in my mind growing up, I was always like, well, as long as they don't bother me too much, then I'm going to continue down the road that I'm going down. and that's the way life's going to be. But, after, this whole thing with CV-19 and all this flurry around this pandemic, it's like a proverbial pan over the head. It's like, wow, it's so obvious. It's so blatant at what's happening with the tyranny and the totalitarian, mindset. It's really scary. So it's like, really, I kind of feel like it's like, we all really need to wake up, and not just on a spiritual level, but really wake up on the level of understanding how these government influences and forces really look at human beings on the planet, and also understand at the same degree what we can do on a spiritual level to overcome this and actually push back against this system. So really getting into the kind of third density talons of what's happening, the information that you have is so fascinating to me, because I want to know that. I want to be able to know how to talk to these people, to the, FB to the I and the CI to the A, or the policy enforcers or anything, if it comes down to, that knock on the door, or I'm being unlawfully approached, but being influenced or being, what's the word, bullied into thinking that I have to somehow submit to this authority. So what I could know, and what everyone else could know, is that if they are breaking the law and they are trying to get you to do something that is not constitutionally correct, or it's not part of natural law, that you have every right as a living soul to refuse that. Otherwise, they're breaking the law. And I thought that you did it on your video. You talked about how you you were pulled over by the police, and that was a really interesting story about it. Could you explain that real briefly, what happened with that and what you said to basically get out of that whole scenario, as an example?
Yeah. Well, with the knowledge and understanding now that if you're not driving or operating a vehicle for hire, then you don't need a driver license.
Yeah.
Or a driver's license. If you look on it, it says driver license, singular. So I was driving down, this happened about 18 months ago, I would say now, in Palm Bay, Florida. I was driving down Palm Bay Road, not driving, but traveling. And I was going over what the posted speed limit was for a driver. And a cop in his sheriff's truck threw his lights on behind me about 2 miles from my house. And I wouldn't pull over. I just continue. I put my arm out the window and I waved for him to follow me. And I drove home and pulled into my driveway. And I turned off my car and I started getting out of the car. And he got out of his sheriff's truck with his gun drawn. And he came over around the side at the driver's side, pulled me out of the car, pulled the keys out of my hand, and got me at gunpoint. And he asked me, "What are you doing?" He was yelling at me. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Give me your license." And I said, "Well, I don't have a license. I don't have, want, or need a license. I'm not a driver or an operator of a vehicle." And he said, "Oh, what are you, a sovereign citizen?" And I said, "No, because a sovereign citizen is a totally made up term that the police made up to confuse people. A sovereign can't be a citizen, and a citizen cannot be sovereign." So I said no, because he was trying to put that word into the public record, that term. Mm-hmm. Cops will interject or inject words and phrases and statements into the record so that later on they can testify as to that's what they said. So he said, "Well, what are you, a sovereign citizen?" Because he might think I want to claim that, and they're trained on that. And I said, "No, I'm a living soul." And he said, "Well, I just want your name." And I said, "It's my name and it belongs to me and it's $500. And I held out my hand for payment. And this is all with a gun, like right at my face. And he goes, "I'm through with you." And he put his gun away and he threw the keys in my car onto the floorboard and then got in his truck and drove away.
That's wild. So now, so you went through the process of filling out the paperwork. You've done all the things that you needed to do, which you point out in the book, The Solution. Now, do people that haven't gone through that process, can they handle that situation the same way, even though they haven't gone through that proper paperwork that you've gone through to sort of get themselves out of that surety?
Yeah. You're always a living soul your whole life. And that's your highest natural law that you have. Anytime anyone ever approaches you for anything, that's a whole separate new contract with that individual. And cops are acting as citizens. They're acting as employees of the state, as individuals. There are 6 terms. There's citizen, person, individual, resident, domiciled, and taxpayer. Living soul is none of those. And these 6 terms are actually corporations. And a corporation can only talk to another corporation. An individual can talk to a person can talk to a citizen. In court, you know, when you're in court, they're like, this individual, your honor, was doing this. This person right there was doing that. Well, he's he's a citizen of Florida and an employee of, he's a taxpayer. This taxpayer, he was paying, whatever. They're not going to say that living soul. So at any time, you can invoke your status in any situation. So when someone says, to you, even if you haven't mailed in a letter and recorded it with the county recorder saying you control your name, you do control your name, because basically the cop has to get it from you with your voluntary consent. And really, you don't really understand, or not, the public doesn't understand precisely to what they are consenting when they give their name to anybody for use. So at any time when someone is talking to you and they're like, well, I just need your name, were you at this place or this location, and now me as the living soul, I'm going, well, wait a second, who are you? Well, sir, we just need your name. I'm agent such and such. Oh, agent such and such. Well, my name is private. And if you want to use my name, I need to know who's using it. I need your address. I need your social security number. I need my fee for the use of my name. So this is some new person making a new offer. The police officer is going to want your name for the driver's license. They pull you over, you start getting nervous, your heart rate increases. The police, we've been indoctrinated into a very negative relationship with these policy enforcers, AKA police officers, which is a private company writing unlawful citations or contracts. A police officer, Sergeant Johnson, his identity is not registered with the Secretary of State. Your name, Logan Henderson, that is a name that is registered with the Secretary of State as an ID, as an identification. So when you go buy a house, they want to know who's buying the house. Logan Henderson, an identity that's real and registered with the Secretary of State that can actually conduct business, pay taxes. Well, this cop on the street, when he writes out under Sergeant Johnson, that's not a real identity. And when they show up in court or in their admin center in that outfit, that's just a fake ID that's not registered with the Secretary of State. I called the FBI headquarters and I called police station headquarters. And I said, where do they get their special agent title from? Where do they get their Sergeant Johnson title from? Is that a registered identity with the Secretary of State? And they said, no, they just give them that to them on their badge in their office. It's just a designated, made up title. Yet they want you to sign citations or contracts under that name as the agreed to party, and you're agreeing to give them your name and your driver license number, and your people are unwittingly going into contract with them. It's all simple contracting. So at any time, you don't have to have secured your name yet with the solution, but there are a whole bunch of instances out there where your name is being used without your permission. And once you go through this process of literally securing your name, it's an awakening. You become born again as a sovereign living soul, because you've taken your name, you've taken your property, your vessel, your house, your offspring, all of the things that you want, anything you'll ever create, all of your intellectual property and your ideas, and put them into a trust, into a security agreement. And that also includes your commercial name and your birth name and any names that you've ever used. And you're creating this power of attorney general over that trust. And then you're recording it with the county recorder, and the county recorder files it on the public record and therefore makes law. If you file any paperwork with the county recorder at any county in any of the states of the United States, then it becomes law after it's been on the record for 30 days. It has 30 days curing process. The county recorder files it, and you make law with your filing. So when you file that power of attorney general, that is the power of attorney general over the security agreement that I go into in my book, The Solution. That's the first set of steps, and out of a series of steps where you become a secure creditor, control your name, control yourself as a living soul, control all of your property, and control your ability to incur debt, discharge debt through the internal revenue service, also known as the Internal Revenue Service, but it's a revenue. They revenue your debits and credits. Once you harness your secured credit, then you can become an independent entrepreneur and operate in the Federal Reserve currency system, but also in the debit credit system with the way it works, becoming free as a debt-free secure creditor, able to incur debt, discharge it, and then sell the item that you've incurred debt for your profit.
Yeah, that I have a question about, because you had mentioned that the other week. Like, let's say under this Private Citizens Act, would you call it private citizen, like private citizenry, like going through and registering through the courts this way that you're talking about? What would be like the name you'd call that? Like, what do you call yourself after having established yourself, going through this process of creating yourself as a legal entity?
Well, you have two standings possible in life. You have your public standing and your private standing. And you communicate in the public arena with certified mail. And you communicate in the private arena with registered mail. So a citizen is a public position. So you'd never call yourself a private citizen.
Okay.
You're a private living soul. Human being, if you look up the definition, is defined as a beast. So you're actually living in two states at the same time. You're a living soul in the form of a human being. And that has been converted by the US of A Corporation into a citizen commercial entity. So you, the living soul, are having an apparently physical human being experience, and the living soul is private, the human being is private, but the citizen is public. So when you mail your power of attorney general to the county recorder as the first step in the solution, you send it certified mail because you're sending it to a public office where it's going to be filed on the public record and become public law. When you mail your birth certificate bond copy down to the US Treasury in Puerto Rico, you're going to send that registered mail because the Internal Revenue Service and the US Treasury are private companies as part of the private US of A Corporation company. So you're sending that registered mail which is basically an account that you create with your registered mail account. And you do private business with the US of A Corporation, your birth certificate bond, your private dealings, and that's all you, the private living soul, as a human being, working your credit. And then in the public domain, you defend yourself kind of as a citizen, and you can always charge anybody once you've controlled all of your property. Nobody can use your name or your property or your citizen name without your permission.
So
And then you can find them if they do.
Is this like after, like, say for instance, your car or your property or your house or whatever, you're saying after you've paid off all your debt and it is officially yours, that this now actually belongs to you? It doesn't belong to, somebody else, as you
Well, you cannot pay debt, and you cannot pay debt. We are no longer paying anything, and we haven't paid anything since 1933, when the president invoked the House Joint Resolution 1933 that removed gold and silver as the valuable consideration behind treasury notes and bonds. And then they became Federal Reserve notes that only represent debt. So with this system, you're born and a commercial bond called a birth certificate bond is created out of you, out of your name. And that is unlimited credit because you can't pay for anything because there's no more credit. There's only debt, Federal Reserve notes.
Right.
So in order for living souls to offset their debt, you incur a debt and then you discharge it or you offset it. And you can use Federal Reserve notes to offset the debt, and you can use the Internal Revenue Service to discharge the debt. And the Internal Revenue Service has a voucher called a 1040V, the 1040 voucher, where if you have a mortgage, you list your mortgage note number on that with the information on who the lien holder is. You send that 1040 voucher with the debt listed on it to the Internal Revenue Service, and then they discharge it for you because you can't pay it. You can only discharge it against your credit. So part of the process with the solution is instead of the Federal Reserve and the US of A Corporation leveraging your credit from your birth certificate bond through your vital statistics office, you send rescission letters and you get out of that contract where you're no longer allowing the US of A Corporation and the Vital Statistics Office to use your credit and the IMF, but you're giving it back to the Treasury where you can use it to discharge all of your debt and then incur new debt and discharge that debt. So you can become basically an entrepreneur with your own credit and still live within both systems. So that's how it works.
So like say like with, I'll just use like the mortgage we have for this house, for example. Let's say I owe $200,000 in the mortgage. I go through all this paperwork and it changes my status and the standings of the way the government looks at me. What would I have to do after I've gone through this process in the solution? What does that mean? So where does that $200,000 go? Like, am I like still kind of a little confused? Am I not paying that $200,000 off, or how does that get offset? I think you just explained it, but just for a little more clarity.
Yeah. Okay. Step one, you send in your, you create a security agreement. It's a 28-page document that leverages you, the human vessel, your name, and all your property. Step two is you create a power of attorney general over that security agreement and you mail it to the county recorder who files it on the public record. And now you are the major owner of your body. No one has a higher title to you or your name than you do, and it's law. Step number three is you send in 5 documents down to the US Treasury. You mail them registered mail with your birth certificate, a copy of your birth certificate, a contract rescission letter where you're no longer allowing the US of A Corporation to use your birth certificate bond, a tax franchise exemption letter where you're no longer liable or no longer are in contract as a taxpayer to the US of A Corporation, federal taxes. You send down a 1040 voucher with your social security number that now makes you a secure creditor because you're depositing your birth certificate for the first time back to the US Treasury. And then a cover letter explaining all that. So you do, along with a copy of a UCC-1, you file a Uniform Commercial Code financing statement that lists all of your property officially with the state of Maryland. And then you print off your receipt, add that to the package that you're sending to the Treasury, along with your own homemade UCC-1 financing statement with your social security number on it. You package all that together and send it to the Treasury. Now you have secured the credit of your birth certificate bond, which is unlimited credit. Then you can make another 1040 voucher with all of the liens that you have, all of the debt that you have, and send that down to the IRS and discharge all of your debt. and then they will discharge everything and you'll get your payoff notices. And the next step in the process is you will get a foreign passport, foreign national passport, update your passport as a foreign national. And also you get a 98 EIN number. And that is a foreign social security number, basically. That allows you to incur debt. And you can use your foreign national passport, which makes you a non-resident of anywhere in the United States, and your foreign 98 EIN number, which is a tax ID number that you can use as a foreign national outside the jurisdiction of the United States to buy property and things and items and incur, not buy, but incur debt with it anywhere. And then you discharge that debt, and then you can, keep that item, you can sell it, and you can do whatever you want with it. And you can continue to incur debt and discharge it.
So how
And
would you,
anything
so
that,
what's an example of incurring debt? Like, and how would I get the money to incur the debt? Like a loan from a bank? Like if I didn't have the money myself.
yeah, exactly. You would incur a mortgage debt with a bank for a piece of property. You might find a piece of land, like a house in California, that you want to buy for $300,000 or $500,000, whatever, and you mortgage it, and then you send the mortgage paperwork, the account number down to the Internal Revenue Service, and they discharge it for you. And now you've purchased it with your credit, or you've incurred the mortgage debt with your credit, really as a debt, and then you've sent that debt down to the IRS, and then the IRS moves that debt over to the credit side because you accept that debt as part of your account, and then they discharge it and offset it, and it goes away because you can't pay for anything. You're not paying for anything ever with anything. You write a check, that's a promise to pay. You use a $20 bill, that's a promise to pay.
I know. I feel like that too. Like talking with people, I'm like, I don't like, they just keep on printing off money left and right. Like they can print quadrillions and quadrillions of dollars. And when you're going to get a mortgage, a loan, you're basically getting a loan with phantom money. We're going and busting our hump every single day to incur all this debt that we really never actually pay off. I mean, some people work until they're really old and work their fingers to the bone and finally do it that way. But what you're explaining is a whole nother way that can actually expunge all of that stuff and give us really the credit we are as an abundant species of people back to us, so that we can, live, thrive, really.
Yeah, then you can do what really motivates you to live. Like, what would your motivation be to live? Like your children, they're born and then they're thrown into this public education system. Even private education still has to fall under all these different rules and regulations. And then the kids are pulled away from their family all day long. Why is it even supposed to be like that? And then the family unit is broken up because these days, with the way finances are and the world is with money, that the parents have to go out and work. They turn their children over to schools every day. Everybody's split up all day long. They come home for a few tired hours to eat some food that they're programmed to eat by the mass media. And then they go to sleep and do it all over again, barely spending time with each other. Everybody usually tired and kind of cranky and trying to get their own thing done and distracted by some kind of mass media, and never really living their life, our life.
Yeah.
So this totally frees everyone up to be a living soul and figuring out what our true purpose is for even being here.
Right. Yeah, I know. That's the whole purpose, is to enjoy this experience that we're consciously going through right now. And
Vacation.
yeah, exactly. What's our purpose? Our purpose is to have joy and to spread the joy, but then to find this ecstaticness and vibrancy and being creative, just this infinite and abundant flow of creativeness. I mean, I feel like that in some of these spiritual journeys I've been on, I've seen such a beautiful world where this world that we're kind of touching on a little bit, it exists. I feel like it's here right now. It's just that we're not recognizing it because of all of the talons of this sort of fake system that's been in place, and all the different programs with this basic algorithm of fear has us all just hypnotized by, we have to live this way, it's the way it is. But really, if you take all that away and you apply these principles that you're talking about in this dimension, in this density of thinking, you take all of that, this oppression away, and this current very uh, corrupt system, we really have a paradise. We really have an Eden. We have an abundance of everything on this earth. It's like, it's weird. It's like when I think about buying water, I think about buying fruit, I think about buying vegetables. I'm like, the earth naturally provides this. Why am I paying for this? It's like, I kind of feel like you really shouldn't have to, but we've been set up this way. We've been set up to have to go to grocery stores. We've been set up to be dependent on the government and dependent upon grocery stores and depending on everything. And it's almost like it's time to work that back a little bit at a time and regain this sovereignty, regain this ourselves as living souls. And I just love this concept. It fires me up. I get so passionate about it because I know this world can experience that. I think it's existing right now as we speak. We just all, as a human consciousness, have to recognize that it does. And I think these little things that we talk about are opening the doorways to that. And it's exciting, man. It's really exciting to me. I'm looking at
I
my
think
picture.
masterminding the solution. One of the problems with mass media is that the mass media and the powerful elite are using a mastermind technique to get the population to accidentally mastermind the solution that the elite want,
Yeah,
instead of us masterminding a solution and a life that we want. And that's why I like the solution book, because if you start following it step by step, we can actually mastermind it together without actually having to sit down and project anything out there. If you just mastermind getting control over your name and your vessel,
yeah.
then you're turning your energy away from that controlling force now, and you're getting more under control. That's what sovereignty is personal responsibility
Yes.
for yourself.
That's karma. That's part of the definition of karma, taking responsibility fully for your sovereignty, right? Without any dependency on anybody else. I am my sovereign being. I am responsible solely for my being. And that's true. Turning the direction back to empowering people to know that they can do that. And that's why this book is so absolutely amazing. And what you're talking about is because it doesn't matter where you are at with yourself when you start taking these steps in the direction of regaining that sovereignty and understanding that you are a free, boundless being and soul, and you actually can solidify that with action steps. That is paramount. That is absolutely phenomenal. And then from there, the sky's the limit. We can really start exploring ourselves as quantum beings, as quantum expressions in an infinite universe. We can start allowing all this abundance to start flowing through and really feel life, feel how amazing and wonderful it is. And this is just a wonderful step, a wonderful first step, man. I think it's awesome to me.
That's
Amazing.
one of the things that always got to me, is that we can sit here all day long and talk about what the problems are.
Yes.
But if we're not giving people, listeners, an actionable solution and set of things that you can literally do that frees you from this horrible slave system, then we're not helping anybody. We're just preaching to the choir.
You're right.
That's why my main focus is solution steps, things that people can literally do, that by the time they're done with it, you only got to do it once, you're free. And if everybody does it, literally by proxy, we don't have to not be registered voters anymore. We don't have to turn in our social security number. We don't have to quit sending our kids to school and stop going to work. The byproduct is that all of that stuff will naturally happen if you just do the paperwork and follow the steps. That doing it, a natural byproduct will be all of those things. You'll be like, I don't even need to vote. I just sold this house for $500,000 and, discharged it. And now I'm selling it and I'm putting in $500,000 in Federal Reserve notes. And I don't have to go to my job anymore because I have $500,000 in the bank, and I'm going to go find another piece of property and start building a farm for myself or whatever. And my kids are coming with me, and we're going to set up our own little private tutoring session. And now all of a sudden you're done. Everybody could be like that. You turn your back on this tyranny and slave system by just following the steps, securing your credit, securing your name, getting your foreign national status, turning your back on corporations that are posing as governments. And So it's a solution. We don't have to even, you don't have to think about trying to manifest it out of your brain and like, oh, I'm going to do this. Let's just make this happen. And I'm trying to manipulate the universe. It's just like you physically do these physical things and the whole world changes for you.
Right. It is such a great step. It's like no matter where you're at, it's like it's a compound, very physical, very real first step that everyone can take to start applying their freedom. And this is where we have to go, in my opinion. I don't know. I've never been more passionate about people really recognizing how beautiful and how free they really are, and helping to come with a solution. And I love that. I love what you're doing, and recommend everybody. Say everybody, you got to get this book or somehow get access. I think, Ron, you said that you got an email with like the forms and stuff that you send out too. That might be, a good step. Anybody can reach out to you just for these forms that they can fill out and get the process started.
And I send them the directions too. The
Right.
Ronald Show 2011 at Gmail. The first step is physical, but you said a little bit ago about how once we are free, then we can go on and do the metaphysical part and allow the world as we wish it to just flow in this toroid field. And part of that is masterminding it. I've been listening to Kevin Trudeau's Your Wish is Your Command. And if you set your vibration properly and you know how to envision the world that you want to manifest, then you can actually just make the universe will make it for you. That's what is so magical about this, is that literally once you harness your own time and your own mind and your own creations and your ability to have a positive vibration, you can everybody can manifest everything that they want as their private sphere of influence.
They totally can. Life is manifest. I mean, that's the thing, is that, a lot of people, I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people don't understand that when they start getting into these negative loops, that what ends up happening, what are they doing? They're manifesting the negative loops to happen. And then what ends up happening, there becomes this victim mentality. Like, why does this keep on happening to me? Well, it's happening because you're caught in a negative loop. And it's that positive state of mind that will start to manifest those positive things that begin to happen. And granted, there are negative things that happen to us as life lessons. But when we get stuck on a negative role, we're manifesting every day of our life, in my opinion. All depending on how you're feeling, what you're thinking. This is creating your life step. And this is into the quantum aspects of the things that really interest me, is that we are actually literally thinking ourselves into existence every split second of every single day, to the point where we can take this without even thinking about our body or really thinking ourselves into being. We can actually take all these other outer layers of our existence and manifest what we call exterior things to happen. Well, this is already manifesting itself for us. It's such a multi-layered, just beautiful life is just multi-layered. It's absolutely miraculous and amazing, and it's a deep dive I love to just talk about and think about and practice on my own. And,
well, there's a formula for it. I believe it is like, it's awareness plus linear time equals apparently physical manifestation. I mean, quantum mechanics and physicists have already determined that every electron comes into apparently physical existence based on the awareness of a living soul being aware of it. So in this sea of space that we're in, there's a constant flow of electrons all around us that are taking shape and form based on our conscious and subconscious awareness of them.
right.
And the subconscious paints this background, and the conscious and subconscious together make our now moment appear in the now every moment based on our previous thoughts, beliefs, plus time. So right now, in this moment, the equation, my now equals, if I was to do the reverse equation, now equals time plus belief and thought, which I created this now moment maybe a week ago or 5 days ago or 2 weeks ago. Yeah. This now moment is an equation product of a thought from before plus time
Yeah.
equals now. And it's happening constantly all the time, every moment.
Yeah. That's
And
exactly
we're
right.
only transcribing a small fraction of the spectrum of sound and light, photon light, that we're even in.
Oh,
And we're
absolutely.
transcribing it upside down
Yeah.
on a screen in our mind that isn't even really solid and physical.
No, it's pretty wild, isn't it?
So what the heck is going on?
It's exciting. It's so exciting to just dive right into it and just let ourselves just kind of go into it. And um, I absolutely love it, man. I'm trying to think if I got any more questions for you. I had this little outline and you really explained that amazingly. And
Conditional acceptance is
yeah,
really right now one of the biggest powers that your audience needs to understand. And what is conditional acceptance and
okay.
how is it relative? Well, honor and dishonor are two positions that you are in with other people in any time in life. So when you go into a courtroom, for instance, because it's all relative to how you can defend yourself now in these crazy times against the so-called powers that be, but a judge is honorable because they accept or conditionally accept all offers. Everything is an offer. A question is an offer. Like I said before, the cop lights are an offer. Do you know how fast you were driving? That's an offer. And you have two ways to stay in honor. Now, if you go into dishonor under maritime jurisdiction, admiralty jurisdiction, which is militant, federal, private company, state jurisdiction, instead of private contract law, you're dealing with statutes and codes. If you go into dishonor by saying no, like give me your name. No, I won't give you my name. Now you're in dishonor. You're blocking, and you can be hauled away because you're dishonoring and blocking the authorities who have control over you because they hold your birth certificate on. So you want to accept or conditionally accept anybody's offer for anything, unless you don't want a relationship. If you're walking down the street and someone smiles at you from across the way, they are smiling at you because maybe they want to meet you and talk to you. If you don't look back at them, you don't smile back at them, then you've broken that possibility of a relationship and you pass each other and there's no relationship, nothing ever happens. So a smile is an offer. Raising your hand in class, that's an offer. The teacher can either say, yes, go ahead, or wait until I'm finished, hold on, then I'll get to you. Conditional acceptance. I'll pick, let me finish what I'm saying, and then you can say your question in class. Or can I go to the bathroom, teacher? Yeah, you can go to the bathroom in 5 minutes. Let me just get through this topic. Okay, no problem. Or, can I have your name? Yes, you can have my name. It belongs to me for $500. But if you say, no, you can't have your name, can't have my name, now you're in dishonor. So you have to understand that your power in everything that you do comes through conditionally accepting all offers. In marriage, are you going to honor your spouse or your mate by accepting or conditionally accepting all their offers? Honey, will you take out the garbage? If you say, no, I'm not taking out the garbage, then you're ruining that relationship. You're dishonoring your mate. But if you say, yeah, I'll take out the garbage as soon as the end of this quarter for this football game is over, I'll take it out on commercial. Okay, that's conditional acceptance. Or will you do the dishes? I'll cook dinner if you'll do the dishes afterwards. Okay, now you're bargaining, you're conditionally accepting. You're agreeing on mutually beneficial terms of a two-sided contract. So in everything, it takes two sides to contract.
That's perfect to know. That's one of the things I was going to ask you about too that I have written down here, which is the honor, dishonor, the offer, acceptance, conditional acceptance, and I think that is great to know. I did have a question, and this might sound like a really stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So, in the case of we have a conditional offer, and that would say worst case scenario. Well, no, I'm not going to go worst case scenario. Let's just say. Uh, uh, you get pulled over by the cops. Situation happened like you, and I work the same story, I work the same lingo like I did with you. And I say, all right, well, I was like, you can't have my name. My name belongs to me, but you can have my name for $10,000, right? Now, this say if the cop, very hypothetical, says, okay, here's $10,000 for your name. What exactly does that mean? Did you just sell your name to this guy for $10,000? Does it belong to
You
you
always
now?
make up the terms and conditions, a one-time use by one person. So this is how I would do it. Give me your name. Yes, officer, you can have my name. I just, for $10,000 cash up front, it's one-time use. I need to know who's using it. I need the name and the reason the person's using my name. So you get all this information. These are the terms and conditions of a contract you're going
Right,
into with a person.
right,
And you don't want to be rushed. You don't want to let somebody hurry you or bully you and stuff. They're like, well, I need your name because I got to check and make sure you're not wanted for anything or whatever. They're going to make up a reason. It's not illegal for them to lie to you. So you can just say, yeah, you can have my name. I just need, if you think you're going to get a DUI and it's going to cost you $10,000 plus bail, plus you might want to say you can have it for $25,000 because they're going to get their money out of the DUI. So you're going to have to pay for all that stuff. So you want to go into it fully going, okay, let's see, what's my name worth right now in this situation? $25,000, officer. So it's $25,000 for the use of my name. I need to know who's using it. I need cash up front. So I'm going to wait here while you go to the bank or the ATM machine and withdraw the money. And so that's your conditional acceptance. And if he's going to follow through with it and go get the money, then great, take it. And then if he wants you to do a sobriety test, yeah, no problem. I'll walk the line for another $5,000. I'll say the alphabet backwards for $2,000. You can search my car for $15,000. Everything that they want is subject to your fee schedule. So one of your phrases you want to memorize is yes, officer, I am fully prepared. And you don't have to write it down now
no,
because
right.
you're going to hear this video later.
Okay.
And your audience can listen to it over and over again. Yes, officer, I am fully prepared to stay in honor by conditionally accepting all of your offers for my fee schedule. So
Good to know.
just
Okay.
memorize that. Say that 15 times. When you're done, write it down. If you write anything down on a sheet of paper 15 times, you'll have it memorized by the time you're done writing it, and it'll be with you. And then also, you got to understand that whoever's asking the questions during the traffic stop is the one in control of the court, because you're basically in court. You're always holding court. Whenever you and another person are communicating, you're holding court with each other, and whoever's asking the questions is in control of the court. And then it's up to the other individual, to accept or conditionally accept that offer to keep court in session. So your power is in asking questions and conditionally accepting. So when the officer's like, well, I'm going to need your name. Oh, okay. Hold on for a second. No problem. Take out a piece of paper and a pen. Who is it that needs my name? And now you've asked the question. Now you're in control. Well, I can't give you that. Oh, okay. Well, I can't give you my name until I know who's going to use it, because you can use my name, but I have a fee schedule. You're going to have to pay a certain amount. I need to know who's going to use it. So I need your name, and you want to be friendly. You want to be non-combative. It's hard to, because a police encounter kicks up your adrenaline. There's a fight or flight response. We've been indoctrinated to see them as these all-powerful, armed, maniacs who will break your window and pull you out through the hole and throw you into the slammer.
Yes, we have. I mean, anytime a cop just comes behind me, a lot of times automatic kick up. I'm up just driving. I got my seatbelt on. I'm going the speed limit. You know what I mean? It's weird how that happens. It's a complete subconscious trigger. And yeah, it comes from the indoctrination of entertainment and education system, everything. It's crazy how we've been so looped into this program. And that's a whole nother topic that really interests me. And I was talking with Tracy about it earlier today about, man, if we pulled these programs out, just get rid of these programs we've been looped into. Oh, wow. I mean, talk about the amount of freedom people would just automatically feel, and just even to recognize whoa, these are all just programs, pre-written, pre-planned programs to keep people indoctrinated into a state of fear, compliance, and complicity. It's like really what we've been nailed down to do. And this whole world has just been operating this way for thousands and thousands of years. It's wild.
And we don't even really know the true shape of or nature of what we're living in.
We
You
don't
know, what is this place?
question it all. Yeah, what is the moon? How far away is the moon? What's the sky? What are we really looking at? Like, I always revert back to the most important thing is your inner truth, and always ask questions, and what you intuitively come up with will set you off in the path of the truth in the form of an external answer, and then what you can then again digest or take in and assimilate that intuitively. It's like it's thing about that process is it's amazing. It's so enjoyable to do that rather than just sit there and go, oh, well, the TV told me this. National Geographic said this. The latest science thing said that. Although there is a lot of real good information out there and very scientifically studied information, we have to use discernment on who we're trusting to receive that information from, and that's an intuitive inner thing, right? And then that changes too. So it's all an inner framework. And I guess that's even, a subject of debate too, because I look at, we're antennas. I think the ether is really where our minds, that our thinking and our subconscious really exists. It's not really so much in here. It's really what we're walking through and breathing every single day of our life,
And this is the heaven or hell of our making. I mean, think about it.
Yep.
Awareness can't really feel individuality unless it's in a vessel in an area. So when we leave here after death, our awareness is going to go to another place where it's aware of itself and living in some type of a surrounding.
Right.
So we're already in the heaven or hell of our making. We are ghosts to other vibrations and densities. We're already dead, yet we're already alive in another place too at the same time.
Yeah.
We've been there. You know what I'm saying? We are dead and we are alive and we are ghosts and we are living souls, and we are not really physical. We're just like the imagination of this physical thing. At least that's what science says. We may be in base reality, but if you listen to a guy like Elon Musk, who seems to be connected to the elitists, he says, and he said it a couple times, that there's a 1 in billions chance that we're living in base reality.
I heard him say that. My dad's been caught up on that too, because he's sort of going off. And I agree with this. It's so much like a computer program, like a simulation. And I've heard other scientists talk about this it's a simulation. Like if you really look at all the ingredients and what we can study and look at, this has all the makings of a simulation, which we're talking about algorithms, we're talking about user, we're talking about interfaces, we're talking about electrical energy, we're talking about all of these things that really create sort of this interface with users and programs, processors, all this stuff.
And there's parameters that we're not even allowed to leave. We can't go into the Antarctic, which many people think is an ice barrier,
right.
And we can't get into the North Pole. And we can't go up into space. I've called NASA twice and asked them for footage of the Earth rotating on its axis in space. Twice, recorded phone calls on my show on YouTube, the Ronald Show 2011. And both times they told me they've got no video footage of the Earth rotating on its axis out in space because they can't get out there. Now, and you also have this moon, which has no atmosphere, almost no gravity. It's not spinning, and there's no erosion, and it lights itself. I mean, there's many times where you got a full moon facing us and the sun is on the other side of the earth, and it can't be lighting the moon. And it's a different type of light. There's no heat from it. It's a cooler light. It's not the same color. And it always keeps itself facing the same way as it's going around. We've only seen the one side of it. All these years, we've only seen the one side of it. So what the heck is the moon, and what are we in, and what is going on? We can't even get out of this area. Right now I can barely leave the United States because they're controlling me with passports and vaccines and all the
Yeah,
different rules and regulations. It's crazy.
I
It
know it.
seems like a very small place, and we don't even know what we are in or where we are in relation to anything, what the real universe is, what.
Yeah, or maybe that there are some people that have a really good idea and they're just not sharing the information, because one of the things I like to say is, the last thing the elite, the elite people who are keeping themselves elite for a lot of different reasons, they don't want to have a lot of us sentient beings running around all being sentient and ascended into these higher dimensions of awareness and understanding, in which case we wouldn't need their systems anymore and they would become obsolete. And of course, you can't have an elite ruling faction lose control of the chattel, because then that would ruin their whole existence. So we have to be. My theory and thinking on it now is that probably not one of them, the largest campaign in the known human history is the campaign of keeping people enslaved. The most money has gone into that, the most time and thinking, the most strategy, the most engineering, the most everything, and the greatest minds of the world have all participated in this. How do we keep people enslaved? And that's really where I feel like we find ourselves now. But we're at the brink, I think, of a lot of people really waking up to this and going, wow, what can I do? What can I be aware of? And taking those steps in that direction, which is why I feel like I love doing these types of talks and having these conversations with awesome people like you, because, hey, I love it. And it's getting information out there for people to discover their own truth and steps that they can take to start becoming aware and awake and just really understand how beautiful and amazing their life actually is, if they don't already feel that way, because it is amazing. And there's all these awesome people out there like you and many others. When they start waking up and opening their hearts and their minds, that they will start coming into their lives and start taking these steps in that direction of freeing themselves and understanding how beautiful that really is, taking responsibility for their sovereign being. And there's nothing more miraculous in this universe as a living human being, or as I should say, as a soul expression experiencing consciousness through the living body. There's no other greater thing than to take responsibility over our sovereign being. So man, well, Ron, I think we're going to end it there, man. Is there any last words or anything you'd like to share with anybody that is watching this? Any encouragement?
Yeah. The solution instruction manual for sovereignty and freedom is on Amazon. You can get the Kindle or you can get the paperback, and you just email me and I'll send you the documents and the directions on how to do it. Even if you can't afford the book right now, just email me anyway at the Ronald Show 2011 @gmail.com, and I will email you the directions and the documents all the way through so you can become sovereign. Share this information. I have a really good movie out on Amazon Prime called Hollywood and Vine. This is the original artwork right here, but it's a little different right now. It's more rainbow looking. I redid the artwork. But this is about the Messiah who saves the world from the forces of evil. And I put that movie out there. I made it when I was living in Hollywood as an example of the world and the power that we as a collective consciousness can mastermind by everyone turning their back on the government. And it's an action adventure movie about this woman who gets the entire world to buy this book, The Second Coming of the Messiah, that teaches like how the Illuminati was formed and things like that. So check that out. Go to Amazon Prime and watch Hollywood and Vine. Email me for the solution paperwork, and just remember conditional acceptance and stay in honor, and you're a living soul and you're not part of a slave system. And then together just pass around the information, and we can start all becoming responsible living souls and free.
Awesome. Great advice, man. Everybody check out The Solution. Check out Hollywood and Vine. Check out The Ronald Show 2011 at, is it The Ronald Show on YouTube? Yeah, The Ronald Show on YouTube. And then they can get a hold of you on email. I'll post that in the description below too, with The Ronald Show 2011 @gmail.com. And check him out. Really awesome guy. Ron, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. And
thank you, Logan. Keep doing good work.
Yeah, man. You too. I appreciate it. And let's do this again sometime when we can get into some other topics. We can get a little
Oh,
crazy
yeah,
and
there's a
wild.
lot to discuss.
There
Yeah.
is, man. It's awesome, but it never ends. That's so fun. It's just so much good stuff to talk about. Cool, man. It's a pleasure as always, man. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself and we'll be in touch.
All right, peace.
Later, man.